Good morning, guys. It is Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. This Bathrobe business. I'm almost out of coffee, but I still have the news. Now, I try to focus on business as much as possible, but I think I'm going to get political with today's post. So let's jump into it. So first thing we'll talk about is we'll mention in passing is the port strike. Obviously, no deal has been reached with that. It's still ongoing, but it is worth mentioning. So just a few highlights. It does cost the U.S. government about well, I shouldn't say the U.S. government, the U.S. economy about $5 billion a day, every day that the strike continues. It's about 45,000 port workers from Maine to Texas. Not much else to go off of other than that. The government has not become involved yet, but we'll see what happens in the next coming days. Honestly, this could be a powerful inflationary force, and it's going to affect other stories I'm going to talk about in just a second, but we'll see what comes of it. So I thought I would just mention that first. Now, most of my stories today are going to be about cars, actually. And let's jump into new car sales. So new car sales for Q3 seem to be growing at a weaker pace. So a lot of U.S. car sales are still too expensive. U.S. Auto sales are projected to grow at a weaker pace for the third quarter from a year earlier, according to industry experts, as inflationary headwinds continue to push consumers away from considering new vehicles. So even though the price of new vehicles dropped slightly this year, it's still not enough to motivate people to purchase new cars, not to mention interest rates have been very high. Now, a lot of manufacturers have been offering deal incentives, lower interest rate financing, better leases, but it's still too expensive for many people. And so far, the rate cut has not reflected any new deals coming to the market. Now, what's interesting is the port strike might actually help a lot of these manufacturers because with no new vehicles coming, this is why it's an inflationary force, with no new vehicles coming to the lots, that means current vehicles can be sold at a slower pace, and so that means prices can be maintained high. When newer vehicles are constantly entering the showroom floor, local dealers are forced to cut deals and to offer discounting. So again, if this port strike continues for an extended period of time, all of these cars that are currently on the lots will maintain their current prices, and dealers will be more reluctant to give any kind of discounting on them. So they'll have time to clear their current inventory, especially those that are still having their 2024 models when 2025s have already arrived. So in light of that, let's jump into where it starts to get political. So I'm going to share this story with you guys. Chinese EV brand Li Auto and Zeekr report record deliveries for September. Now, this is all in China, but local manufacturing of Chinese cars in China is squeezing out Tesla specifically because Tesla is the largest selling non-Chinese brand automaker in China. And year after year, month after month, week after week, they are losing market share to China. At the same time, I want to share this story. So U.S. Lawmakers asked Mexican president-elect to address Chinese vehicle concerns. So this is where I'm going to start to get a little bit more political because according to this story, the main concern as to why we need to stop Chinese cars from entering the market is a security concern because the Chinese government can come in and control these vehicles and steal our data and use it in all sorts of nefarious ways. I think this is funny because it's a conspiracy theory. And why I say it's a conspiracy theory, because during COVID, a lot of people were saying you shouldn't buy electric cars because in the future, the government will just be able to lock you down by locking up your car and controlling it. And you won't be able to go anywhere. So the next lockdown, once more electric cars are on the market, will be more severe. You'll have less freedom to move around, and you'll be trapped, which is why you shouldn't buy electric. And the media would make fun of this point, be like, that's insane. That's a conspiracy theory. The government would never do that. Yet, here is an article saying exactly that from the federal government, saying that not only is it possible, it will happen. So either you're feeding us a conspiracy theory or our concerns were always warranted. And the other thing the article doesn't talk about is the fact that the US government can do the same stuff to us. It doesn't address the fact that there are no safety guards in place to protect US consumers from the federal government or state governments for that matter, if you live in a state like California. So there is no regulatory hurdles for the companies to be able to do everything that this article talks about. Just replace China with US. So that's why this is going to get a little bit political for me, is because the US is just failing across the board. We can't manufacture. And when we can't manufacture, we try to put these ridiculous barriers into place, and all we do is hurt our own populace. Right now, we are not trying to protect U.S. consumers. We are not trying, because if we allowed these Chinese cars to come into the market, it would be a deflationary pressure because these cars are less expensive, and so people would have a cheaper alternative. So domestic manufacturers, Tesla, GM, you name it, would be forced to reduce prices in order to compete. That is how you reduce inflation, not by giving interest rate cuts to major banks and private equity funds that just hurt Main Street. No, you want to you want to help Main Street? Allow for competition. Allow for these cars to come in. And if you can't compete, don't try to make up security concerns that, oh, they'll steal our data, because you're stealing our data. Right now, I'm on YouTube. All my data is stolen by Google, all of it. There's no safeguard in place from the federal government to protect me from Google. There's no safeguard in place to protect me from the federal government. They can just remove my channel at any point for disinformation or whatever new idea they come up with. But this that could actually help US consumers, that goes untouched. So this is why I'm going to get political. And I want to bring up a couple more things. So right now, there is literally mustard gas in Georgia. So Georgia County issues new shelter-in-place order over chemical fire plume. Now, this is like the 10,000th environmental crisis we are having here in the United States, and no one seems to care about it. So there's this giant chlorine gas cloud, which is mustard gas. This is a chemical weapon that was used in World War I, is forcing people to stay inside and, I don't know, don gas masks. And this is in the same time as we had that train derailment in, what is it, Palestine, where all the chemicals on a train spilled into an entire community. That still has not been cleaned up. And I just found out yesterday that Flint, Michigan still has lead in their water. That has never been taken care of. That is still ongoing. Meanwhile, every time I go on social media, I see other countries, not just with impressive infrastructure, with infrastructure that puts our country to shame. I was in Peru this year. In fact, that's where I got engaged. And I was warned so much that, oh, it's a third world country. You better be careful. It's so dangerous there. The streets were cleaner. There was no homeless. I think I saw one homeless guy the entire time I was there. And honestly, he wasn't even so much homeless as he was busking. He was selling stuff on the street. So meanwhile, we have an office here in Salt Lake City that is overrun by the homeless. We're not in California. We're in Salt Lake City, Utah. And in one 30-minute period, I had to shoo off 3 homeless people from sleeping in our property. And this is with the federal government saying that, oh, China is the evil one, Russia is the evil one, all these other countries are doing it wrong. Fix your damn infrastructure. Fix your damn country. This is absolutely ridiculous. We have environmental disaster after environmental disaster. We have constant issues of rising prices, unaffordability, and the federal government loves to point fingers at other countries. We need to get our country together. This is why I'm saying I'm getting political, because it's absolutely ridiculous. The federal government is trying to come at other countries for actually creating products that are less expensive and higher quality than aiming to do the same here in the United States. Lastly, the last story I'm going to share with you guys is something else that pisses me off. It's the fact that Jerome Powell says that there may be more rate cuts ahead because, of course, we need to help Wall Street. Again, as I've talked about many times, these rate cuts are not going to help you. They're not going to help you buy a house. They're going to make housing prices more expensive. The only way to buy a house is to increase supply, and none of these things do that, including, again, to get political, Harris's idea of giving $25,000 for everyone buying a new home. That's just increasing demand. It's not increasing supply. And when you cut interest rates, you increase the chances of financialization, because it doesn't even have to be BlackRock or Vanguard or State Street. It doesn't have to be a major hedge fund, but anyone that's an investor benefits from interest rate cuts because they can go out and purchase homes, outcompete the private buyers, and rent those facilities out. And because there's not enough supply to compete with that, you're going to have rising prices. So every time interest rates cut, it increases financialization, which we've talked about multiple times on this channel, seems to be the only way that anybody makes money in the United States anymore, because we don't do anything other than financialize markets. We talked about how Wendy's wanted to financialize the markets with surge pricing on their drive-through menu. That is, with the entire United States capital system has just become a giant scam, and this helps that. So it's terrible news across the board. Honestly, we've got port strikes, we got inflation, we got American car brands that can't compete with a car company. By the way, these car companies, these Chinese EVs, Zeekr and Li Auto, I think they launched this. I know they launched this year because I reported on it. They launched in March and April of this year and are already outcompeting American companies. So it's just shameful. The United States just sucks lately. And not lately. I mean, we're going on to 20 years now of just the United States just not able to do anything. So sorry for being so pessimistic. Sorry for being so aggressive. But I feel like it needs to be said that we need to focus more on producing quality and less with this BS of international politics, which we can't seem to play correctly anyway, and help U.S. consumers rather than helping Wall Street, as the United States economy has done for going on 40 years now. So that's my 2 cents. I will see you guys back here tomorrow. I hope you have a productive day and try not to be as angry as me. Bye.